You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Deku Enters Worm. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of the Dark Wolf Shiro on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Honor, charity, and kindness were tools used to control the masses, and prevent people from taking advantages that they deserved because the method of achieving it would make another person's life worse off. But at the end of the day, you should only focus on making your life, and perhaps the lives of your loved ones, better, and if that means making the lives of strangers and mere acquaintances worse, then so be it. They'd do the same to you given the chance, and missing opportunities to enrich your life all because it wouldn't be honorable or virtuous was the height of stupidity. When people around you make mistakes that leaves them vulnerable, you should take advantage of the opportunity to enrich yourself before someone else does it. These are the lessons my father taught me as he trained me to inherit his business. How to take advantage of your rival's mistakes, how to make sure your underlings remain your underlings without allowing their loyalty to spot weaknesses in your targets, how to always get your way. What he failed to teach me was how to deal with the randomness of the world. You could succeed at everything, destroy rivals completely and expand your business throughout the world, only for the whims of fate to take it all away from you, never giving you the slightest chance to try and fight back. I went through life, succeeding at every challenge, never hesitating as I made my mark on the world, and this is how it ends. Why the F is there a truck on the sidewalk anyway? As my vision is blinded by the ridiculously bright headlights, I can only brace myself as the rogue truck plows into me, pain shooting through my body. I spend a moment cursing the world for the unfairness of it all. Flying backwards, I land on a cushy chair and pause, the pain vanishing as quickly as it came. Slowly opening my eyes, I freeze as I look around the extravagant office I've found myself in. It makes mine look cheap in comparison, and I've spent tens of thousands to make sure my office looks anything but cheap. A part of me is angered by it, but the well-dressed woman sitting at the desk in front of me doesn't look like the kind of person I should risk offending. Cold blue eyes stare me down as I resist the urge to squirm, looking around the office in confusion. The uncomfortable feeling is made doubly so when I realize that however I got here, it didn't bother bringing my clothes, leaving me sitting naked before the admittedly very attractive woman. She clicks her fingers and I find myself wearing a plain pair of black trousers and a white shirt, her disapproval not fading as she stares me down silently. In the back of my mind, I finally catch on to what the hell happened. I died, and the afterlife isn't quite as ethereal as it is usually advertised. Correct, though not entirely. The woman says, her first words since I have arrived here, making me jump slightly as I turn to her. You are dead, but this isn't a regular afterlife. In your world, there was no afterlife and the only thing waiting for you was an eternity of nothing. I see, he said, straightening up. And yet, here I am. May I ask where here actually is, and who you are, he asked, making her nod after a moment. You are in one of the offices of the Guild of Gamers Inc., brought here by one of our best scouts, Truck-kun, a few hours before your original time of death, she explained, making him pause. Truck-kun. He was going to die anyway, so the truck brought him here. Was this a fever dream, created by his dying mind? You have been chosen out of a literally infinite number of souls, to be offered a second chance at life as a part of our company, and I am Lucille, daughter of one of the 4 founders of the guild. I'm stuck here as part of my punishment for a slight mistake I made a long, long time ago. Lucille explained after a moment, making him straighten up. So he was dealing with the equivalent of a CEO's daughter. He could work with that. I see, it's a pleasure to dash, he started, freezing as Noir's eyes narrowed slightly, an immeasurable weight coming down on him as she did. Save the small talk, I voted for someone else to be offered this opportunity, but Truck-kun was insistent and I was overruled by Lord Kuro. You'd think he'd have given up his grudge by now. Lucille mumbled to herself, making him nod rapidly as he felt himself start to sweat. May I ask what this company does? I know that nothing in the world is free, certainly not a second chance at life, he asked, making her nod curtly. Correct. The purpose of the Guild of Gamers is to amuse its founders, my father Shiro, Lord Kuro, Lord Grey and Lord Kuro. If it had more purpose than that, only those four know, and I wouldn't advise asking them. Immortal multiversal beings tend to dislike being questioned too much. Lucille deadpanned. What the hell had he gotten himself into? As for what this means for you, you've been chosen to be sent to a new world with a prototype system, the specifics of which will be decided at this interview. You will have contractual obligations during your time in this new world, and once you are finished in that world, we will have a performance review. This will decide whether you are allowed to keep your system and gain access to more worlds, or whether you are left in whichever world you are sent to. It's also possible that you may fail your performance review and find yourself promptly fired, which also happens to involve your soul being devoured. Lucille said with a slight twitch of her lips as he shuddered. I take it that I have little choice in the matter, he asked after a moment, making her giggle. It was an appealing laugh, almost song-like in nature, but it didn't make him feel particularly comfortable. Of course you do, you may choose to leave through that door at any moment. Of course, you'll be sent to the endless void that is your world's afterlife, but that's up to you. Oddly enough, very few take that option. Lucille drawled, making him nod. He knew a thing or two about contracts that you could technically refuse, but he was usually on the other side of the table. I can imagine why, so I suppose the only thing left to do is begin this interview, he said as he laced his fingers together, placing them in his lap. You seem to misunderstand, we aren't so primitive as to have to ask you questions. Our systems have been going through your memories ever since you arrived here. The results will be available momentarily, and then we can decide which system you will be granted and to which world you will be sent. Lucille said, tapping the desk as she looked over the computer screen off the side of her desk. Humming as she read something he couldn't see, she turned back to him with a slight frown. It seems you have a few choices ahead of you. Firstly, the business tycoon system. Lucille said, making him nod to himself. That sounded about right. This system is fairly low risk, but while it can make you incredibly rich, it is limited in how much power it can grant you. It also has less challenging contractual obligations, making it a rather easy option. Lucille said, making him mull it over. It sounded ready-made for him, but limited power didn't sound enticing. Next, the Supervillian system. This one is new, and is marked as high risk, higher reward. It was designed by the Lord Curus, meaning it's more forgiving than those made by Father, but it still has rather demanding contractual obligations. Lucille continued, making him pause. Supervillain. That word had plenty of meaning, from the likes of Lex Luthor to the Joker. One of those was appealing, the other was less so. The system is very broad, allowing for either style of villainy and many more. Lucille said, making him flinch. It was unnerving to have his thoughts answered out loud. The Lord Curus may be slow workers, but they are very thorough and their systems have the highest rating for user enjoyment. Lucille explained. She continued explaining the other systems, from the strategist system which allowed the user to command entire armies to the Devil's Tongue system which allowed the user to gain power by making contracts with other people, but even as she went over his options, he knew he'd made his decision. When he was younger, cartoons and comic books were his guilty pleasure, and Lex Luthor had always been his favorite. The genius businessman who challenged gods with just his intellect. He was Batman but cooler in every way. Sure, he always lost, but that was because comics didn't let the villains win. As she finished explaining the thief system, he took a deep breath. I've made my choice, I'd like to choose the supervillain system, he said calmly, taking his first step into a new life. I see, brave to accept a prototype system, but perhaps it will pay off for you. Lucille said casually. As it is a Kuro system, it comes with the dating system pre-installed. Now, the world. Unfortunately for you, this particular system doesn't allow the client to choose their own world, instead it chooses one at random from a series of pre-designed worlds. Designed worlds? He asked, making her smirk. Our company is very powerful. Lucille said with a smug tone as she typed something. And that's the world locked in. I'd say you got lucky. My Hero Academia is fairly low risk compared to many of the worlds included in the rotation, but it's a modified version and I'm afraid even I don't know how Kuro modified it. I see, I suppose I'll have to see it for myself, he said, frowning slightly. He has watched the first season of My Hero Academia, but only because he was dating a weeb at the time and she made him watch it. She was amazing in bed but he had to dump her after she started calling him Oniai-chan in public. Weeb's man, not even once. He remembered very little, but he did recall the basics. It was a world where heroism had become a 9-to-5 job, with schools made for training youths to become heroes, and almost everyone had a superpower. But when everyone is a super, is anyone? Well, yes, because not all powers are made equal. This was not the ideal place to start on the path of villainy, but he would adapt. Now all that's left is to sign the contract, and you'll be ready for your second chance. Lucille said, pulling out a rather foreboding scroll, placing it and a pen in front of him. Reading through the contract, he paused at parts before he sighed and grabbed the pen. It was remarkably vague, simply stating that by accepting the system he was also accepting that he would have to fulfill his obligations to the company as well, but when his choices were this or death, what choice did he have? As he signed, he winced at the tugging feeling in his hand, and the red writing as the pen drew his own BLD to write with, and as he finished his signature, Lucille clapped happily. Excellent, I do wish you luck in your new life, really I do. I get a bonus if you succeed. Lucille said with a smile making him chuckle, it was important to keep your employees motivated after all. Before he could reply, his vision was blackened once more and he felt himself fall through the chair he was sat on, and the floor beneath it. Are you sure Truck-kun got the right person? Lucille asked, scratching her chin. Truck-kun is the best at its job. I'm sure it's fine. A lazy voice replied from her computer. You said that when Truck-kun accidentally ran over that raccoon, now there's an animal running around with one of our stronger systems. Lucille countered. Tanuki, not raccoon. Besides, it all worked out fine in the end, trust in Truck-kun. Kuro replied, making her sigh. Why did she get stuck working under a manager who didn't actually give AF what was happening as long as it was funny? Oh right, she tried to kill him. Looking down at the contract, she glanced at the signature briefly before she filed it away. Jin Yukimura, huh? He better succeed. After the last 4 she processed failed their performance review meeting or just died before the meeting. She needed a success or it was going to look bad on her own performance review. My Hero Academia was marked as low risk anyway, and surely as lazy as he was Kuro hadn't made too many changes. She'd check in on her newest client later, but her shift ended in 5 minutes and she had a well-deserved day off coming up. Jean. I have been lied to. Staring up at the city sign in front of me, I realized that I should have been a lot more worried about what modified world meant. Welcome to Brockton Bay. I have been played for a fool, and as I stare up at the proof of my idiocy, I rapidly try to remember as much from Worm as I can. It isn't much, but just enough to let me know this isn't going to be the power of friendship and training montages anime bullshit I came here expecting. The sign has 17 bullet holes, but the condition of the paint implies that it's fairly new. Wonderful. I can hear gunshots in the distance, and as I check my pockets I quickly find my wallet, with a driver's license and a couple of $100. My suit is definitely worth more than the contents of my wallet, but for once I wish I wasn't so well dressed because I must look like a very easy target. Perhaps it's time you got acquainted with your new powers. A voice deadpan into my head, making me jump quickly, looking around before I stop myself, hearing the voice in my head chuckle. Hello. I say cautiously, making the deep male voice chuckle again. You can just talk to me in your head so you don't look crazy. I see, I take it you are from the guild. Yup, normally I'm not so hands-on, but since you're using one of my prototype systems, I thought I'd come say hello. The name's Kuro, one of them anyway, and I'm the architect of your new system. Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you. In a manner of speaking, you have my thanks for giving me this second lease on life. You can skip the flattery, I'm not Shiro. Though trying to stay on the good side of the all-powerful, immortal being is a good policy in general. Anyway, like I was saying, you should probably start the tutorial and get acquainted with your powers. This world has a pretty high danger rating, and the sooner you land on your 2 feet the better. Lucille said this one was a low-danger world. Because she was too lazy to check the modifications, and her shift was almost finished, so she wanted you out before them. I won't spoil the surprise, but you'd be surprised at how many clients take days to work out their menus, and I want to see how the new system works out, so you being killed in a mugging gone wrong wouldn't really help with that. Fair enough, I'll take any help I can get. Just think, game menu, to open your menu up, and start game tutorial, to make the tutorial start up. It should be able to guide you from there. Good luck, you'll probably need it. Oh, that reminds me. Check your perks, I threw a freebie in there since you got this world. You'll kinda need it if you want to survive the next 24 hours. Wait, what? Kuro. With no response, I took a breath and took his advice. Opening my menu, which is frankly disorienting as purple transparent boxes fill my vision, the first thing I notice is that almost every option is currently blocked, claiming that I need to go through the tutorial first to unlock it. I can take a hint, and with a thought I start the tutorial so I can try and work out how I actually am. Tutorial initializing. The Supervillian System v1.05 online. Quest added. Beginner's Guide to Villainy. Objective 1, select a villain archetype. Objective 2, build a simple lair. Objective 3, acquire 10 minions. Objective 4, acquire a henchman. Objective 5, level up your class or acquire a new one. Objective 6, acquire a piece of unique loot. Objective 7, gain 100 infamy. Reward, class. Please select your starter villain archetype. A part of me immediately wants to take the warlord. I remember enough about the different power classifications to know that I very much want a brute power, but I certainly don't want to be a case 53. I suppress my initial reaction and stop and think. In all honesty, I have no interest in fighting outright. The other villains can play cops and robbers all they want, but I don't feel like joining in. The warlord sounds like it would give me the power to protect myself from common thugs, but in a world where powers are common, the smartest move is not to get into fights in the first place. A brute power won't help if I get into a fight with someone who can just blast through it. With that in mind, do I want any of the combat focus starts? At least for now, I think the answer is no. Which leaves the trickster, the MSTR thief, the mad scientist, the cult leader and the schemer. The mad scientist is too risky. I remember how rare and desired tinkers were, and the fact that tinkers need materials and tools means I'd be more likely to be discovered and forced into one of the gangs, or the PRT, which is basically the same thing. The cult leader is also risky because MSTRs are very much frowned upon. I can't risk getting too much attention before I'm ready. The trickster is interesting, but it doesn't feel me, the same with the MSTR thief. Which makes my decision fairly simple. The schemer selected. Tutorial Objective 1, complete. Just another face in the crowd, stranger. This power causes the user to perfectly blend into crowds, making them near impossible to pick out or notice. The larger the crowd, the more powerful it becomes. Acting unusual or drawing attention to yourself will make this power fail, as will leaving the crowd. The vision, thinker. The power causes the user to gain flawless vision, allowing them to spot tiny details at great distances. In addition, the user gains the ability to selectively see through most obstacles. Overuse of this ability will cause thinker headaches, and temporarily disable all aspects of this power. I prefer the term, coerced loyalty. The perk gives you an edge when attempting to blackmail people into obedience, allowing you to push them further with less intel than you would normally need. Your minions will arrive when you have chosen a lair location. As my eyes burn briefly, I wince and reach up to rub at them, blinking rapidly as I look around my surroundings in slight awe. Everything is so much clearer now. Looking around, my vision homes onto a small ant as it crawls through the grass. I can easily see its little legs moving despite it being a good 30 meters away from me. Nothing that will help me in a fight, but that's about what I expected. With that selected, I can access my perks, and see what the freebie Kuro gave me was. Welcome to Worm, where a scary woman in a stylish hat will put a bullet through your head in the first 5 minutes of you arriving if you don't have this perk. This perk grants you an immunity to thinker powers, including all forms of precognition. You're welcome. I have no idea who that is referring to, but I'm glad I don't have to worry about her. I don't, right? Well, regardless of scary women in stylish hats, I have work to do. First things first, I want to work out what the situation is. This world was supposed to be My Hero Academia, but it is clearly Worm and I need to work out why. Plus I need to pick a place to work as my lair, since right now I am effectively homeless. It's midday at the moment, given the position of the sun, so it's time to head into the city and find a computer. Also something to eat. Thankfully, despite Brockton's reputation and the gunshots I occasionally hear, keeping to the main roads leaves me mostly undisturbed, the only person who attempts to stop me being some homeless beggar, hoping for an easy mark thanks to my obviously expensive suit. I have limited funds, and frankly he'd have to pry them from my cold dead hands if he wanted so much as a penny. It doesn't take me long to find a public library with computers I can use, and as I finish the crappy fast food burger, I head inside and make myself at home. I'm going to be here for a while, so with the cheap coffee I got from a questionable fast food restaurant in my hand, I sit down and get to work. First things first, what day is it? Where am I in the timeline, which I admittedly barely know? Is canon already going on? Finding Parahumans online, I scour the site for recent events and mentally thank the nerds of the world for doing my work for me. The biggest event? The Simurgh attacked Canberra just over a month ago. It's the 3rd of March, 2011, and I can already see signs of the MHA changes. The thread on the Simurgh attack has a lot of people arguing about a specific question. Why didn't All Might take part in the Endbringer's attack? There is no definitive answer, but they don't know that All Might has a time limit. If he tired himself before the Simurgh moved, he wouldn't have been able to help at all. But why wouldn't they have someone like Panacea fix his injury? I'm missing something, but I also quickly found out why I didn't start in Japan, in Multiverse. That's where MHA takes place, so that's where I should be, right? Well, no, because it doesn't exist. Something in Worm canon history changed, and Leviathan never attacked Kyushu. It attacked Tokyo instead, and it was just as devastating as Kyushu had been, meaning that Tokyo and its surrounding areas are still uninhabitable. Japan has been devastated, and it has barely started to recover from losing close to a quarter of its population. Multiverse wasn't in Tokyo, but it was close enough that it's still destroyed. UA was rebuilt, but it was rebuilt in America because that's where most of the staff ended up after being forced to leave Japan. America took in the most refugees from the attack, and the PRT funded the school because all hero schools seemed to be under their control. This led to me discovering the biggest change, why hero schools even exist in Worm. Quirks exist here, but so do Worm's Parahumans. Quirks are far, far less common than they were in MHA because they are caused by Parahumans having children. If a Parahuman has a child, that child will almost always have a quirk which awakens in their adolescent PRD. For a group like New Wave, that's fine, but if you're a cape with a secret identity, then having your child suddenly start breathing fire or shooting lasers out of their eyes is a bit of an issue, since it basically says, one of my parents is a cape. That's not even mentioning the increased chance of physical changes. Quirks change the user's body far more than triggers. So schools were made to help them learn their powers, to keep them under control and stop them from being walking, talking middle fingers to the unwritten rules. UA is one of these, and it was built in between Brockton and Boston. teens from all over are sent there to learn how to control their powers, and possibly become protectorate heroes, which is why the PRT are so interested in funding it. They are built away from cities to help keep things private, and the names of students kept highly classified. The wards still exist, but that's for teens who trigger normally. At least that's what I can work out from sources of questionable reliability on an internet board and Wikipedia. The gangs of Brockton seem fairly similar to canon, though each of them seems to have more members than I remember, with the Asin bad boys having a new cape who sounds an awful lot like the crazy BLD girl from MHA, and a Case 53 mover who I'm pretty sure is the teleportation villain who worked for the creepy hands guy. The weirdest part is that they also have a cape whose power is that she is completely invisible, which sounds like one of the classmates from UA, but she was a hero. Maybe something to look into. Which led to another discovery, and a highly confusing one at that. There was a versus thread about whether VERYYYY the ABB's invisible girl was stronger than the unnamed daughter of Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl who had the same power. The answer was a resounding no, as while VERYYYY was more active than the invisible member of the Incredibles, she could only turn invisible, while Violet Parr has force fields as well. Why are the Incredibles here? Their existence complicates things because that means I can't rely on my worm or MHA knowledge, as spotty as it might be. On the bright side, there is no Skitter yet as far as I can tell. Lung hasn't been captured, and that means I have some time before Worm's canon starts. So now I just need to work out one thing: where the hell do I build a lair? Brockton Bay has an excess of unused real estate, entire portions of the city are run down and abandoned, but it also has a massive gang problem. Someone on PHO put together a helpful map of Brockton, keeping track of which gang controls which parts of the city, and it tells me that the PRT are borderline useless. The Empire has the most territory by far, the entire commercial district and over half of the downtown district under their control. They've pushed into the docks as well, but it appears the ABB are holding them off. The ABB themselves are in second place, with two large parts of the city carved out on opposite sides of the city, and looking at the older versions of the map it looks like they managed to steal some Empire territory over the past few months. Apparently VERYYYY poisoned a bunch of higher-up Empire mooks and they took some territory during the chaos. Then there's the merchants and the PRT sharing third place. The PRT holds as much territory as the F merchants. Admittedly, the PRT holds the more upper-class areas of the city, like the boardwalk and a lot of downtown, while the merchants occupy the run-down parts of the city, but still. It's ridiculous how they could let some DRG-addled idiots control as much of the city as they do, all while claiming to be the law. Well, the answer is fairly easy to understand. They could push the merchants out, but then another gang would move in and they don't have the manpower to hold any territory they clear. New Wave barely leaves the boardwalk and the wealthy side of the city, and if they cleared out the merchant territory then all that would happen is that the ABB would move right in since the merchant territory shares a border with them. Then the ABB would be in a position of power with more territory than the Empire, and that would probably start a gang war. They can't push into the Empire territory because the Empire has far more capes than New Wave does, and they can't push into ABB territory because the one time they tried Lung went on a rampage and they barely escaped with their lives. Their capes, that is, the grunts very much didn't. Basically the PRT are borderline useless, desperately holding on to the small piece of the city they've been able to grab. Going through the threads, I can see people calling them out for it, but I can see both sides. If you live in gang territory, having the PRT basically abandon you to your fate must hurt, but okay. On the other hand, they aren't only protecting the wealthy areas because it's profitable or good PR, they are doing that because they lack the manpower, and spreading their forces any thinner would be a death sentence with the Empire and ABB waiting for them to give them an opening. They used to have more territory, but after their attempt to push into ABB territory, the Empire took advantage of them, exposing their flank and captured a lot of the downtown district from them. If they attack one group, two more are waiting in the wings to punish them, and they are trapped in between all three gangs. But I digress, I have work to do, and with everything I've learnt I know where to start building my lair. The merchants are the weakest of the factions, and they are the most incompetent. I have the best chance of going unnoticed and undisturbed if I pick one of the abandoned buildings in their territory as my first base. I'll move on to bigger and better things eventually, but for now I just want a place to rest and plan. Looking over a map, and spending some time researching the different buildings, I eventually pick a location and nod to myself. It's deep in merchant territory, but that is by design, near the waterfront and as far from the ABB and PRT territory as possible. Neither of them should come this deep into merchant territory without me giving them a reason to, but it's a decent distance away from the main merchant hangouts. At least the ones I can map out with the help of internet strangers. I'm sure there are hidden hideouts where they actually make the DRGS, but I can only work with what I know. Leaving the warehouse, I mentally plan out my route as I set off to the other side of the city, keeping to the crowds as much as I can. It takes a couple of hours to reach the merchant territory, and the sun has started to set, which admittedly makes me somewhat nervous. I keep moving, as the buildings slowly get more run down, the streets less cared for with graffiti, trash and potholes appearing in increasing numbers. I blatantly ignore the reddish-brown stain on the sidewalk as I walk around it, not stopping to think about what caused that or why it leads into one of the alleyways. Using my new power, I focus my vision into the alleyways ahead of me, making sure they are completely clear before I cut through them. I can hear police sirens in the distance, and the amount of homeless men has been steadily increasing the later into the day it gets. A few glance my way, but I guess my determined stride and expensive suit scare them off. Maybe they've mistaken me for a member of the ABB, but I can deal with that later. I should have gotten a mask, but masks draw attention and I don't need Skidmark thinking a new cape is in his territory and coming to deal with me, even if I am a new cape in his territory. There are very few homeless women, and I already know why. The merchants don't have brothels like the ABB do, but that doesn't mean they aren't involved in the same business. Reading through the merchant thread told me that they tend to grab any homeless women, drugging them up to get them addicted and then pimping them out, and I'm pretty sure I've seen a couple of their victims already, wearing barely anything as they linger around street corners, under the few working street lamps. It's been a while since I got laid, but I'd rather remove my manhood with a steak knife than stick it in some disease-ridden HKR. Besides, as a supervillain, doesn't it make sense for me to have a scantily clad henchgirl? But first I need a lair, my minions, and a source of income. Henchgirls in skimpy outfits can come later. It doesn't take me long to find a merchant, my enhanced vision seeing through his ragged clothes and spotting the gun he has tucked in his belt with the safety off and the clip loaded. Thankfully, the man is also as high as a kite and asleep on the sidewalk, so I just sidestep him. I consider grabbing his gun for myself, but there are a few people lingering around and I don't want any more attention than I'm already drawing. I should have bought some cheap, second-hand clothes, but honestly, I was the CEO of a powerful, global company in my past life. I'm not dressing up like some street bum, I have standards. Reaching the warehouse district, the crowds start to disperse with the exception of a single warehouse that has a few too many people around it, and peering through the walls out of the corner of my eyes shows a lot more merchants inside. An underground DRG lab from what I can tell, but as I try to look through the ground I wince, my head throbbing as one of those infamous thinker headaches hits me. I've been looking through walls and clothes for hours, I suppose I overwork myself, but with a wince I take one last look through the walls surrounding the warehouse as I watch them load boxes into a truck, a very stacked blonde yelling orders at the men. The welding mask she has covering her face tells me who she is, as her tiny jean shorts and stained white tank top certainly don't scream cape, but I do believe that would be Squealer. Girlfriend of Skidmark, tinker of the merchants, and a complete junkie from the rumors in Picho. I'd say they are right, from the sheer amount of DRGS she has managed to fit into the pockets of her very small shorts. She also has a considerable amount of needle marks on her arms, my perfect vision letting me see them as clearly as if I was right next to her. Closing my eyes, I move away from the area before the merchants, on guard, take offense to my lingering. My head is burning up, and even trying to use my power again sends jolts of pain through my brain, so taking the hint I rely on my regular senses. That DRG den is closer than I hoped to my chosen lair, just a few streets away, but I can work with that. I'm going to take the fight to the merchants eventually, and knowing where one of their DRG dens is will help. But that's for the future, for now I need to get set up. Reaching the rundown warehouse, I mentally sigh as I think about my mansion from my past life, before I start looking for a way in. The reason I picked this one is because it had a rather sturdy stone wall built around it before it was abandoned, and taking a chance I use my power again to peek inside, focusing through the pane as I make sure this isn't another merchant hideout. The only life I spot is a couple of homeless people sleeping on the ground floor, but I can probably get rid of them. Thankfully someone already did my job for me and one of the gates has been broken, allowing me to get inside easily as I sigh outwardly. It stinks, it's barely standing, it's in the middle of enemy territory. Are you sure you want to make rundown warehouse a lair? Obviously not, but I don't have much choice. Yes, I'm sure. Rundown warehouse claimed. Cost, free. 1% control of the docks area. It's not much, but it's a start. As I accept my fate, mentally swearing to either improve this dump or get a better lair as soon as possible, a cough stayed my attention making me jump and spin around, freezing in place as I stare at the dozen or so men and women standing behind me. 10 worker minions added due to start choice. Worker minion. Workers are the most basic of all minions, specializing in construction and simple tasks. They can fight, but they usually can't win. Every single one of them is wearing a bright yellow jumpsuit as they stare at me in anticipation, and I feel another function of my game unlocking. What's your orders, boss? The lead minion asks, making me smile to myself. Follow me for now, we have some vagrants to send on their way. I say as I turn and head into the warehouse. I feel more confident with 10 followers at my back, and the stomping of feet makes the few vagrants wake up quickly as they pale, seeing us heading their way. Hello, poor people. Who here wants some money? All you have to do is agree to leave this place and not come back. I say loudly, making them freeze as they look over at me. I don't want to kill some random hobos, and I don't want to draw any attention. You serious? One of the bums asks, slowly approaching me. How much? How much will it take to get you to leave? I ask, I need a starter price to start the negotiations, turning to the one who spoke making him pale slightly. No, $10, he says quickly making me pause, before I sigh and pull my wallet out. I'll give each of you 20 if you agree to leave and keep this to yourselves. I say pulling 4 20s out, one for each of them as their eyes light up. Or I could skip negotiations because I'm not squabbling over pocket change. This district has a lot of homeless people and communities talk, even if the community is made up of vagrants, junkies and beggars. I want to delay the merchants hearing about this for as long as possible. Handing the notes out, I watch them scurry away quickly, not wanting to stick around while they are outnumbered by an unknown group, before I nod to myself. Closing my eyes, I access the new function of the game and start to plan out what I want my workers to do. I've played enough base builder games to see where the guild got this from, and while it's strange to be planning out a construction in my head, it's fairly intuitive. There are different room types, and it doesn't take me long to get the hang of it. As I mentally command them, my minions start to work as they pull out their strange tools and start to dig out a new basement. They are bafflingly fast, laying out the corridors I planned out in minutes, before they start digging out the rooms. Firstly, the barracks, because even minions need to sleep, then the mess hall because they need to eat as well and so do I. A power station room is next, because this warehouse doesn't have electricity and that is unacceptable. It doesn't have Wi-Fi either but I can't fix that just yet. The final 2 rooms, built on a level below the first basement, are the special ones though. A vault, for all my ill-gotten gains though sadly empty at the moment and the inner sanctum. My room, essentially. I don't have access to any of the more useful room items yet, just basic bunk beds for my barracks, a small kitchen and table in the mess hall, and a generator just labeled generator in the menu. How does it make power? Good question. Where does the food come from? Also a good question. Where did the minions even get the bunk beds? More good questions. But after watching my minions build an underground lair in less than half an hour, I find myself willing to accept that my power isn't exactly logical. Beginner's Guide to Villainy. Objective 1, select a villain archetype. Objective 2, build a simple lair. Objective 3, acquire 10 minions. Objective 4, acquire a henchman. Objective 5, level up your class or acquire a new one. Objective 6, acquire a piece of unique loot. Objective 7, gain 100 infamy. Reward. Moving to my inner sanctum, I sit at my somewhat fancy desk, looking around the room with a slightly approving smile. The black and purple color scheme is very cliché for a villain, but it's cliché for a reason. It works, and it looks nice and intimidating, which is the entire point. Pressing the suspicious button on my desk, I watch as a holographic map appears, hovering in front of me as I stare at it with a raised eyebrow. Aside from the tiny purple spot in the north of the docks, most of it is covered in a fog of war, due to lack of intel, but a few streets over there is a building marked with a large green M. Just something else I'll have to deal with in the future. I can't have a DRG lab on my front lawn unless it's my DRG lab. My company worked with pharmaceuticals, and really the only difference between DRG dealing and Big Pharma is that we paid off the law enforcement to not bother us. Please select your first henchman. Please note that while you can theoretically recruit all of the following henchmen, each of them is currently in a position where recruitment will be easier as part of the tutorial. Once you select a henchman and start the recruitment quest, the others will move on and become far harder to acquire. The Eco-Terrorist, Combat Henchwoman. Pamela Isley has triggered, and it isn't going to end well for anyone who isn't a plant. Convince Poison Ivy to join up with you, before she can stand on her own 2 feet. If this henchwoman isn't recruited now, she will become a rival crime lord later on. Warning, due to her ability to create self-replicating life, having this henchwoman serving you will result in massively increased heat from the PRT as long as Emily Piggott is in charge of the local branch. The White Rabbit, Stealth Henchwoman. Jaina Hudson likes to be chased, but she never thought she'd actually be caught. After getting overconfident, the White Rabbit has found herself caught in a PRT trap. Free her before she can escape by herself to recruit her. If this henchwoman isn't recruited now, she may target your vaults later on. The Mechanic, Support Henchwoman. Cheryl Bailey isn't the smartest woman around, which is why she's currently crashed into a ditch in a DRG-fueled coma. Grab her before the merchants can find her and convince her to work for you, by any means necessary. If this henchwoman isn't recruited now, she will increase the overall power of the merchants. The Scarecrow, Science Henchman. Dr. Jonathan Crane is well, he's a bit of a lunatic to be honest. He really likes fear, and that's something you can use. Fund his experiments and gain his services, before he finds a new source of funding. If this henchman isn't recruited now, he will become an independent supervillain and may pose a threat to you later on. Closing the map, I take a deep breath and proceed to slam my head into the wooden desk, groaning out loud as I do. DC. Man, F this world. I don't want to be here anymore, I want my mansion back, away from all this superpowered bullshit. Gathering my wits, I look back at my options and sigh to myself. Basically, pick one to be on my side while I have to deal with the other 3 and so many more threats. I want to have a polite word with Lucille over what low risk means. Helena Bertinelli the Huntress. Being an independent hero meant a lot more than just not having a team to back you up on patrol, or having to pay for your own costume and equipment. It also meant you didn't have access to the PRT's information network as well, as they guarded their intel jealously, so when it came to patrolling as an independent you had 2 options. 1, literally just wander around until you came across a crime, which admittedly didn't take too long in Brockton, or you had to make your own information network. The first option was probably more fun, but it meant you barely made a difference. Sure, stopping a mugging here, a RPE there, made life better for the people you saved, but it didn't hurt the gangs at all. All 3 major gangs had more low-level thugs than they knew what to do with, and she could put dozens away in a single night without them caring. The second option let you work out where you needed to hit them to really make them feel it, and that was why she did it. It wasn't anything complicated, she just had a few of the city's homeless on her payroll, paying them for any useful intel they could give her. But it meant she had to work out what was a real tip, and what was just bullshit made up to try and get paid. So when one of her informants claimed to have seen a high-ranking ABB member heading into a warehouse deep in merchant territory, she was pretty skeptical. The location he gave her was literally on the other side of the merchant's territory from where the ABB were situated. But she felt the need to investigate all the same, because as much as she despised the merchants, if they were beaten by the ABB then things would go south fast. The main reason the merchants survived as long as they did despite a bunch of DRG-addled morons was simple: the PRT stopped any of the other gangs from taking over their territory. If either the Empire or the ABB took over the merchants' territory, they'd control more than half the city, and the PRT thinkers were sure that it would lead to a full-on gang war between the two, and that whichever gang won would be able to push the PRT out of the city entirely. The merchants were a necessary evil, for the good of Brockton, because while they hurt a lot of people they were also unambitious, lazy and frankly too incompetent to be a real threat. The Empire and ABB were far more dangerous. Skidmark wasn't as cunning as Kaiser, or as powerful as Lung, and having him be in control of the most rundown parts of the city meant that he'd just keep peddling his DRGs and just generally keep being a nuisance. Not a threat, just a nuisance. Both the Empire and ABB would put the territory to much better use. The one problem with the merchants is that they tended to be so drugged up that they forgot to follow the unwritten rules, which could be a problem. It was a good job that none of them were smart enough to work out any other cape's real identity. Skidmark wouldn't hesitate to go for a hero or rival villain's family if he could find them. It meant that if the ABB were trying something, she needed to know and be ready to try and put a stop to it. Staring at my options, I slide my chin as a plan starts to form in the back of my mind. I can see where this is going. Each of these potential henchmen are in a position where recruiting them is going to be much easier, but the ones I don't pick will move on and become an issue to deal with after the tutorial is over. Loading up my PC, and thank F I have one of those in my office, I start to scour the internet for information on the various henchmen, starting with their names. Obviously not by their real names. I don't know how secure this connection is, but just by their cape name. The presence of DC characters in Brockton Bay scares me, because as bullshit as shards can be, it's FDC. Thankfully, the only match for Superman is a particularly egotistical hero who got killed within a week, and he just had superhuman strength, speed and stamina. Basically the shard equivalent of Captain America from what I can tell. The Scarecrow does bring up results, more like rumors and myths than actual confirmed intel. Mad capes ranting about being given their powers by the Scarecrow, usually doing a suicide by hero within the month. It's led to people believing he is a Trump of sorts, but he's never been seen in the open, and the PRT's official word is that they are looking into it. Squealer comes up with plenty, especially on the Brockton Bay threads. Basically she's a DRG-addled lunatic. She has a habit of joyriding her creations through the city while high as a kite, usually leaving wanton destruction and casualties in her wake. She's apparently an amazing driver, and I'm some of the VS threads. Other tinkers have suggested that she might be a very high-level tinker who is being held back by DRGs and poor materials. What I do know is that she's unreliable, unhinged and so full of DRGs that she barely knows where she's going half the time. She's also the very image of used goods, and while they are taken down from PHO as soon as they are posted, it takes all of 5 minutes to find her nudes. Her face is always covered by either a welding mask or some other kind of mask. She doesn't really have a set, cape uniform, but there's hundreds of pictures and dozens of videos of her out there for the public's viewing pleasure. She really lives up to the name. She had the potential to be a true beauty, with some of the biggest melons I've ever seen, but right now, I think I'd rather stick my PP in the sewer water. It probably has less diseases. A verified merchant cape named the Grapist, of all things, has spent quite a long time boasting about banging her, and from his words it sounds like Squealer is used as a bribe for successful merchants by Skidmark. From the other merchants I can find online, some capes and some unpowered thugs, it seems like the Grapist isn't all talk, as he isn't close to the only person that claims to have F Squealer. It's bizarre to me to see so many capes, heroes and villains alike, just posting online, but I suppose capes are people too. Squealer herself has a very rarely used account, currently banned for sending death threats towards Arms Master after he trashed one of her rides, and she basically confirms that she's half the gang when she replied to the grapist and called him a midget with an even smaller PP. In less polite words. Squealer was tempting purely due to how endowed she is, but she's gonna need a lot of work before I'm willing to touch her. Besides, she's also an enemy, so it'd be a rather forceful recruitment. I'd need a place to store her until she came around, I'd need a garage for her to work in when she has been convinced to see things my way, I'd be bringing a lot of merchant heat on myself and my organization before I am ready. The White Rabbit is very interesting, MSTR thief who has pulled off some very impressive robberies, but she's flighty to say the least. She's stolen works of art, spent the night running circles around the heroes trying to stop her, only for them to find the painting ditched in an alleyway after they lose her. She seems to steal purely to get chased. She's a junkie as well, just a different sort. Her DRG is adrenaline, and she seems completely addicted to it. She has even been posting warnings over what she is going to try and steal on PHO lately, and it doesn't take a genius to realize she is getting bored of how easy she seems to have it. There's videos, badly shot videos, of her outrunning Arms Master on his bike, and dancing circles around Velocity. She's a big black eye on the face of the Brockton Bay Protectorate, because even with her telling them what she's going to steal they haven't managed to catch her. Recently she even gave them a time and a date of when she was going to steal a jeweled necklace, daring Arms Master to come and catch her, and the next thing she posted was less than 10 minutes after the given time. It was a simple picture of a very smug white-haired girl with big white and pink bunny ears, wearing nothing but a corset, a pink thong with a fluffy white bunny tail and a pink domino mask and a jeweled necklace. It's unsurprising that she has so many fans, she's CC and she's badass, seemingly uncatchable, and that's made her very popular among the youths of Brockton Bay. She's extremely active in PHO, but she hasn't posted anything recently. Her last post was another challenge, but the time she gave was 10 minutes ago and she's been awfully quiet. Following the pattern, she'd usually be boasting by now. But I know something they don't, the PRT finally caught the White Rabbit before she could run off to Wonderland. Which leads to the slight issue of how the hell do I get her out of their grasp before they send her out of my reach? And finally Poison Ivy. Her name doesn't bring anything up, but that doesn't stop me from subtly tracking her down through other matters. Dr. Pamela Isley is a biologist working under a Dr. Jason Woodrue at the Brockton Bay Botanical Gardens. I found her on LinkedIn. Which led me to the next thing that really should have been easier to hear about. The Botanical Gardens is currently overrun with giant angry plants. You'd think that'd be something that was covered better, but aside from the PRT putting out a warning to avoid the area around it, there's no official word why. Thankfully, the internet loves gossiping and the PRT can't hide the fact that the plants in the Botanical Gardens have just gotten up and started walking. Nor can they hide that there are PRT trooper corpses littered around the gardens. Poison Ivy has wasted no time in causing utter chaos and carving out a piece of territory for herself. Worse still, the gardens are in the middle of Empire 88 territory, so now she has both the Empire and the PRT looking her way. She's definitely the hard-mode henchwoman, very high risk but equally high reward. That's assuming I can even keep her under control, as Ivy has never been particularly fond of people. Aside from Harley, who does exist in this world. Oddly enough, she's in a team with Circus and someone called Punchline, and while I can find references to the Joker it seems he's already been birdcaged. Which is a slight bit harder to escape from than Arkham, apparently, as he hasn't moved from there in the 3 years since they locked him up and likely threw away the key. No mention of what his power was, because nobody seems to actually know. Also, no Batman as far as I can tell. That said, it didn't even say who caught the Joker, which tells me that it wasn't a Protectorate hero because the PRT would have used it for PR, since the Joker is as infamous here as he was in DC. But I digress, I have a decision to make. System, are you able to answer queries? I am, user. Ah, wonderful. My request is simple. I'd like to inquire whether it would be possible for you to give me some additional information on my choices, specifically their current locations and status. Give me a moment. Pausing for a moment, I wait patiently as I continue looking over the different capes and groups in Brockton. This place is infested with capes, and most of them are villains. I'm going to start building files on the different threats around Brockton. Information is power after all. Request accepted. Locations and status of potential henchmen have been added to your map. Loading my map up, I start to scheme. Squealer is nearby, very unconscious thanks to a mixture of bad batch DRGS and a crashed van. It looks like she tried out some of the DRGS she was moving and had a bad reaction. The Scarecrow, or to be more precise, Jonathan Crane, is hiding out in a cheap apartment building across the city. He's fine and currently looking for a new source of funding. My new intel lets me know he's considering approaching the Empire for their resources. The White Rabbit is moving, currently in cuffs in the back of a nondescript police car. They don't want to draw cape attention and they know Jaina is basically useless once she's captured. She doesn't have any powers beyond the ability to summon the White Rabbit, and she can't risk that with PRT troopers in the car with her. Even if the rabbit escapes, eventually she'd have to dismiss the summon and Jaina herself would still be trapped. The moment she tries anything she'll get blasted with containment foam. The car is taking a frankly baffling route, but I suspect they know something I don't. They don't want Jaina to end up in the hands of one of the gangs. She was annoying enough as a solo act. But the system has graciously given me their planned route, and I can definitely work with that. I just gave you the information you would have gotten if you chose them. Poison Ivy is in the botanical gardens, as expected, and she's on the defensive after fighting off the PRT. If I go there, she'd kill me without even waiting long enough to listen to whatever I had to say. So my choice is clear, I'll take all of them. Wait, what? Grabbing a pen, I start writing on the expensive paper my desk came with, because I'm fairly certain I can pull this off and grab at least 3 of the 4 choices, and I can start making progress with the 4th. It takes me a moment to decide what name I want, but after a few seconds of thought I make my decision. Only one thing has ever truly appealed to me, and basing my cape name on it is only logical. Is he allowed to do that? SHT, the guide didn't mention this. Calling for 2 of my minions on the base-wide intercom, I watch as the yellow-suited men enter my office, quickly standing to attention in front of my desk. You, blonde one. Take this to a Dr. Jonathan Crane, his address is written on the front. Also, change into something more inconspicuous before you leave the warehouse. You, take this letter to Poison Ivy, in the botanical gardens downtown. I order, making them salute. Yes, boss. Blondie says, making me smile slightly. I missed having underlings, and really is there that much of a difference between being a CEO and being a supervillain? Boss, I can see your computer. Why did you put homicidal next to Poison Ivy's name? The other minion asks as he picks up the letter. Isn't that bad? I'm sure you'll be fine as long as you don't do anything to provoke her. Don't shoot the messenger is a universal concept after all. I say calmly, making him nod firmly as he salutes. Understood, boss. I won't fail you. Yeah, he's probably dead to be honest. I mean, I didn't realize that they were quite that sentient since they just popped into existence, but I need to work out how aggressive Ivy is. I'm sure you'll do great. I praise him, making a small note in my to-do list to find out how to replace deceased minions. You can customize how your minions look from your PC. Also, what the hell are you doing? Should I stop this? Oh, thank you system. Finding the option, I change their bright yellow jumpsuits for a more subtle black, with some golden accents and a black face mask. There's even an option to make my own villain uniform, but most of the options don't suit me at all. I don't like all the extravagant outfits and I certainly don't like how skin-tight most of the options seem. I eventually settle for a black suit jacket and slacks with a golden vest and tie, with a white shirt to finish it off, along with a black and gold metal face mask, similar to something out of a masquerade. It doesn't cover enough to be honest, only covering the upper half of my face, but that seems to be fairly common around here and I like the style. It's mostly black, but it has golden accents and embroidery around the edges. Honestly, it's all a little gaudy, but I suppose it's all par for the course. Villainy and gaudy outfits seem to go hand in hand. Besides, I look far more reasonable than most capes. I even have my underwear on the right side. Wait, why is that stuff all free? OSHT, you weren't supposed to know about that until after the tutorial. I'm so getting into trouble for this. System, are you doing okay? System. Jumping slightly as a small flash fills the room, I pause as a young woman teleports into my lair, giving me a dirty look. It's the F tutorial. Why are you already trying to metagame during the F tutorial, dude? She growls, making me blink as I look her over. She's not exactly modestly dressed, wearing nothing but a tiny white tank top that doesn't even cover her midriff along with a very short pair of black jean shorts as she glares down at me with almost glowing purple eyes, long black hair tied up in a ponytail. She's also quite clearly not wearing a BR, and I can see the outline of her NPL piercing as she stared back at me. I take it you are from the guild. Have I broken a rule? I'm afraid Lucille was rather sparse on the details. I reply, making her groan. That's because Lucille is a lazy SLT, and everyone else is left picking up the pieces after she F up again. But yeah, dude, I'm from the guild. I'm the administrator for your system, literally my first day on the job as an admin and I have to deal with a metagamer, she whines, making me stare at her blankly. Anyway, I'm Neith, might as well get it out of the way since we're gonna be dealing with each other for a few years at least unless you die, which would be bad since if you die too early it means I F up as the admin. Neith admits. Well then, Neith, I look forward to working with you. I half state and half ask. I'm still not quite sure about the proper etiquette with the guild members, but I have no reason to be impolite to the person running my system. I was under the impression that Lucille was assigned to handle my case. Please, Lucille is a glorified secretary. The big bosses don't trust her with any actual power since she tried to blackmail my dad into fighting her dad, and then killed him when dad told her to go F herself. Of course, dying doesn't really mean much for gamers, but the point still stands. She's been grounded for literal millennia because of it, so she isn't allowed to actually run a system. Neith explains as she sighs, moving around my desk and hopping up onto it, sitting on the edge in front of me. And no, you haven't technically broken any rules, but I F up. Like I said, I'm new to this SHT. You weren't supposed to go for all the options, and I need to make sure I'm not gonna get into trouble because of it. My mum makes this system SHT look way easier than it is, but she's been running my dad's system for thousands of years. Neith admits, making me pause as she pulls out a phone, making a call. After a moment she hops off the desk and starts to pace. I realize I should focus on the potential trouble I'm in, but god DMN does this girl have an amazing peach. Her melons are rather average in size, not that it detracts from her beauty, but her peach is F massive. Dad? Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the supervillain system. So, if the user managed to get all 4 of the potential henchmen in the tutorial, would that F things up? Neith asks as she paces around the room, frowning slightly. The F do you mean you don't know? You made the thing, okay, tell mom to stop eating your PP and pass her the phone. Her father seems like an interesting man. So it won't break anything. Ugh, please tell dad to wait 2 minutes before you two start F again, this is serious. Neith groans as she walks close enough to me for me to hear the other end of the call. You know how he get, how your dad gets OF, faster but it should be fine honey, me and the other ISIS spent a long time patching out the bugs from the system before we released it. If if anything, it means you probably got a pretty good user, it's the ambitious ones that go the furthest you know, a sweet female voice says over the line, with the sounds of flesh slapping together being picked up by the phone as she So I won't get into trouble just because he decided to start metagaming before he even got out of the tutorial. Neith asks, barely fazed by her parents having SEC on the other end of the phone. No, honey, it's fine. Besides, his success is your success, system administrators and users should both want the other to succeed, it makes the relationship so much more enjoyable, her mother says, lewdly as Neith rolls her eyes. Okay, thanks mom. Love you too dad, even if you are completely unhelpful. Neith grumbles, a male chuckle coming over the line. Ending the call, she sighs as she leans against the desk, rolling her eyes. Your parents seem interesting, I take it that was one of the Lord Kuros that Lucille mentioned? I ask, making her mod. Lord Kuro Teeps, the second gamer to actually survive long enough to matter, and my dad. My mother is called Isis, she used to be an incorporeal omnipotent being, but she was corny for dad since basically day one and she made herself a body so she could ride his mythical pages. That's dad for you, just because the girl doesn't have a body doesn't mean he can't knock them up. There's a reason I have an endless number of sisters, and most of them are him too. Neith admits with a shrug. It's good to be the immortal ruler of an entire multiverse I guess, you get what you want and what dad wants is pages. Impressive, and here I am trying to take over a single city. I say, making her laugh. Don't worry about it dude, all gamers have to start somewhere. Neith says, pushing my shoulder playfully. But mom is right, I kinda need you to succeed because me and Lucille both get rated on how well our gamer does, can't believe I have to share a user with that bee, she says as she sits on the edge of my desk. So, back on subject I can continue with my plans to recruit the henchmen? I ask, making her pause as she checks her phone. Well, dad just texted me and his exact words were, do what you want, you're the admin, typical dad passing responsibility to other people, so yeah, I guess so. Neith admits. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't giving that ICE SLT a reason to look down on me. I see, my thanks. I say calmly, making her shrug. It's my job, your success is my success and all that SHT. You're right by the way, Squealer has more STDs than a truck stop HKR, if you wanna put that big titty bimbo to use you better get her cleaned up since you don't have gamer's body for disease immunity yet. You need to prove you deserve the full gamer skill set before it unlocks. Neith warns, making me nod thankfully. That was the plan, besides I need to actually get her under control first. I point out making her scoff. Please, she's a junkie, just lock her up and dangle some DRGS in front of her after she starts to get withdrawal symptoms and she'd SCK every PP in the train yard for a hit. Besides, once you've got her in the base, consent isn't really an issue. Neith says with a shrug, making me stare at her in slight shock. What? If you were the sort of person to have those kinds of morals, you wouldn't have been offered the supervillain system. You want something, you take it and F up anyone who gets in your way. I've seen your last life, blackmail and veiled threats were a daily thing for you, you made your business flourish at the cost of your rivals and your workers. Is that a problem? I ask, making her laugh. She's not wrong, I destroyed entire businesses, sent families into inescapable debt and crushed anyone who got in my way, all so I could benefit. Dude, you could have been a genocidal warlord and you still wouldn't have been the evilest recruit to the guild. The guild is a place where people who are willing to do anything to get what they want flourish, if anything that ruthlessness is probably why you got recruited in the first place. Neith explains. We literally have serial killers, warlords and cannibals as users, a corrupt businessman is nothing. Cannibals? I ask despite myself. All I'm saying is if you meet someone who has the glutton system, F-run dude. Best be crazy. Neith warns. Actually, just assume every other gamer is legitimately insane or just generally but, you'll be right a lot more than you'll be wrong. Neith says with a shrug, making me sigh. Nice to know what kind of guild I've joined. Don't be like that, I mean if you play your cards right you could literally rule this world, or even dozens of worlds, unless you need the guild services you probably won't even seen any of the others, and on guild grounds there are rules against fighting or attacking other gamers, and you don't want to break the rules. Lord Grayson is a stickler for them and he kinda devours the souls of people who break them too many times. Don't break the rules if I don't want my soul to be eaten, understood? I say after a moment, taking a deep breath. Really, as long as you don't break the guild rules, and I'll tell you them all before you ever step foot on guild grounds, and you finish your contractual obligations, you can do whatever the hell you want. This world is your playground, and the guild doesn't care what you do to it. Neith says, hopping off the desk, incidentally making her melons bounce quite a lot, drawing my eyes despite my best attempts to avoid staring. Dude, eyes are up here. Neith says with a deadpan tone, staring at me blankly for a moment as I go to apologize before she bursts out laughing. I'm just F with ya, I don't care. If I didn't want people staring at me, I'd wear more, besides I know I'm Cece, got some of the best genes imaginable. My apologies, I shouldn't be staring at my supervisor. Coworker. Boss's daughter. I say, frowning in confusion. Coworkers works I guess, we both work for the guild, just in different areas. But seriously dude, stare all you like, I don't care. Girls don't get piercings if they don't want to show them off. Neith says casually, reaching up and squeezing the melons that has the piercing slightly, making my trousers grow slightly uncomfortable. Don't tell me it's that easy to get to you, been on a bit of a dry streak. Here, have a freebie. Neith says with a mischievous smile as she grips the bottom of her tiny top and lifts it, her melons bursting free almost immediately as my PP grows rock hard. She might not have the biggest melons, but they are perfectly formed and deliciously pale with tiny pink tips topping them, one of them having a small silver bar piercing. Covering herself again, she gives me a smirk and glances down at the tent in my pants. Guess it's been a while if it's so easy to get you going, my advice. Grab the white rabbit, Jaina is kinda a cold bee but the rabbit is a nympho, you clearly need to get your PP wet. Anyway, I need to get back to work, keeping this world running is more work than you'd think. Good luck with your metagaming, but don't expect me to give you any more freebies game-wise or the fun kind. You want any more, you're gonna have to work for it. Neith teases, making me chuckle. You'll find I've never been afraid of a little hard work or hesitant to put in the effort to get what I want. I reply calmly, making her laugh back. I can definitely work with this. Neith. Heading back to her office that was just her bedroom, trust her father to make a system that could be run from her bed, she dropped down onto the bed with a slight frown. Lucille. She hated that bee. Jean was probably gonna be one to keep an eye on, if he was trying to get the absolute most out of the tutorial of all places, but while it probably meant more work for her, now that she was sure she wasn't going to get into SHT for it, she was starting to see the benefits. The guild was a very competitive place, and dozens of her sisters, along with Shiro's, Grayson's and the other Kuro's daughters were all in the same position she was in, administrating for a user. Every user had 2 guild staff assigned to them, an admin and a manager, her and Lucille, and the better the user did the more the staff members were rewarded. Jin's success was her success, and unfortunately also Lucille's success, but Lucille was buried in so much SHT it'd take an industrial digger to get her out of it, so that wasn't really a problem. Still, Jean was kinda cute. Oh well, she couldn't be too nice to him, since it'd look bad on both her end of PRD review and Jin's, but if Jean succeeded? Well, gamers did make the best lovers and that was one way to spite Lucille by making their shared user like her a hell of a lot more. Not that being more likable than Lucille was particularly difficult. Pausing as she rolled the random event generator, she paused as she looked at what came out, and then promptly rolled it again. She was going to have words with her father, because day 1 Endbringer attacks didn't exactly make good game design. As it came up with a second event, she paused for a moment and shrugged, lining it up for after the tutorial. Honestly, she could have gotten a far worse user, since one of her sisters had a user who deliberately stayed in the tutorial for years to abuse its features. She eventually got bored enough to start an apocalyptic event, then sat back and watched the world burn. A bored admin is a dangerous admin, a bored and annoyed admin is far more so. It was why someone like Lucille wouldn't ever be trusted with any real power, she'd blow up the world within an hour because she didn't like something the user did. Jean. Changing into my new outfit, I place the masquerade mask on my face with a slight frown. I've never liked things covering my face, but needs must, I suppose. Meeting my 8 minions at the entrance to my underground lair, I check Squealer's destination one last time before I nod to myself. Opening the base building mode again, I look at some of the options I didn't think were that important before. In the second underground floor, which currently only had my inner sanctum, I've added a small prison room and a single holding cell. I'll need to check out the research section for more unlocks later, but for now I have work to do. Right, you and you, stay behind and build the room I just planned out, the rest of you follow me. I order, setting off out of the building as I shake my head, stilling my nerves. I'd rather sit at a desk and tell them all what to do, but I don't have the manpower or anyone talented enough to guarantee success without me being there to lead this operation in person. I'll need to add a secret exit to my lair in the future, but it's late enough that nobody is lurking around to watch us leave, and once we are out of the warehouse and onto the streets, none of the few bums sleeping on the street are dumb enough to get in the way of 7 masked men and women as we head through the streets. Maybe the merchants will hear about us and come to investigate, but I intend to be back in the lair before those junkies can react. Following the route I planned out, it only took us 10 minutes to reach our destination, and after taking a moment to stare, I have to wonder. How in hell did Squealer manage this? Looking at the vehicle currently embedded in the wall of a rundown building, I nod at my minions and watch as they move towards it slowly. Also, how didn't the merchants hear this? Skidmark is throwing a party, he hasn't even noticed Squealer hasn't returned yet. Squealer was already high when she was sent to get more DRGS, and she took a load more before setting off back to base. Ah, thanks Neith. Boss. You were right, she's in the driver's seat. One of the minions shouts, making me smile as I head closer myself, cautiously as I peer through the driver's side window. Squealer is passed out against the wheel of the van, BLD pouring from a gash in her forehead, and as I have a minion test the door handle, the door opens easily. She didn't even lock the doors. Pull her out. I order, watching one of my minions reach in and grab Squealer, holding her in a fireman's carry as he pulls her free from the van, no seatbelt of course. While he does that, I do notice something interesting. Despite the crash, the van is in one piece, it didn't even damage the windscreen despite having smashed into a building. The building definitely ended up worse for wear out of the two, and the keys are still in the ignition. Is that button labeled cannon? Well, freeing White Rabbit just became a lot easier. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author The Dark Wolf Shiro on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.